Bomber, of course, it's worth remembering, was the former British and European and Commonwealth light middle and middleweight champion, and one of the finest professionals never to have won a world title. And here's Craig Joseph, and he makes a living when he's not boxing by singing in a band and playing a guitar as well, I do believe. There are 7 wins, 3 losses and a draw. Craig comes from Bradford. Fought Clinton Woods for the Central Area Championship, and that's his most recent loss.
I think the significant statistic there was the one inside the distance win, and obviously they don't want to give Herol too stiff a test at this stage, but Joseph should at least give us a chance to gauge how much Herol's got left.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Claude. He's actually no slouch, Craig Joseph, if he's in the mood. And he knows he's in the mood tonight, and it's a big chance for him to make a name for himself, isn't it?
Well, I don't think Herol's going to get easy fights in Britain, because they all want to beat him, don't they? He's a big name. Great name to have on your record.
Absolutely, and one very interesting fact here is that Bomber Graham's only ever been beaten by one British fighter. And that, of course, was Frank Grant from Bradford, the same town as Craig Joseph.
Ominous bit of information, that, Steve, isn't it?
If you like. They are 37 years of age now, Bomber. 45 wins and only 5 defeats.
And in fairness, if this fight had taken place 10 years ago, we'd be sitting here arguing whether Joseph would land a punch, let alone whether we would win.
Yes, and of course, Bomber's so unlucky in world title challenges.
So, ladies and gentlemen, sports fans, this is our chief supporting contest, sponsored by the Daily Star, and it's in the super middleweight division. Firstly, and introducing to you, fighting out of the blue corner. He's wearing the black and white trunks and weighed in at 12 stone and 3 pounds. He brings an 11-fight record with 7 wins, 1 draw and only 3 defeats. He's from Bradford. Would you please welcome Craig Joseph? Across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, and he's back. He's wearing the Graham tartan and weighed in at 12 stone and 3 pounds. He brings a staggering 50-fight record, 45 wins and 27 coming by the way of that big KO and only 5 defeats. He's the former 2-time British and Commonwealth and European champion and former 2-time world title challenger. He's from Sheffield. Would you please welcome Herol?
So here we go then for tonight's chief supporting contest. Herol Bomber Graham still on the comeback trail, still after that elusive world championship against Craig Joseph from Bradford. 8 3-minute rounds. And a lot of people said that his comeback fight against Terry Ford, the American, last time out was unimpressive.
Well, Herol won that fight very, very comfortably. But it was interesting to note that Ford was only really a welterweight or a light middleweight, and Herol at super middle couldn't hurt him. Now he's fighting someone more closer to his own weight. We'll see what he can do with it.
Yes, and Bomber wants to put in a very good performance here tonight. about you, Claude, but I remember being there at the Royal Albert Hall the night that Bomber fought Mike McCallum, who of course was a Supreme World Champion. And I thought that Bomber was very unlucky not to have got the decision that night.
It was more of a scrappy fight, and Herol took McCallum to a split decision, and we know what McCallum's achieved. He's one of the greatest fighters of the modern era, so Herol was unfortunate in a way to come up against very good champions when he fought for the world title, which is the only reason he never became world champion.
Yes, exactly, and of course Julian Jackson, I'm afraid, put his lights out in Spain. But he beat a great deal of good fighters over the years. Ayub Kalula for one.
Well, he wiped out all the domestic fighters, didn't he?
Yes.
And most of the modern ones, like Nigel Benn, Michael Watson, and Chris Eubank, didn't want to fight him.
Exactly, and who can blame them? And I do believe now Bomber's qualified as a social worker. Well, they're not looking too charitable here to Craig Joseph in this first round.
Well, it's been a bit untidy, and Herol's game always used to be able to hit the opponent and stand right in front of him and not get hit back. And although he's not been hit in this round, he's not really landed much.
So a good start then for Bomber.
Well, managed to release some frustration or some energy in that round at least, and stretch his arms a bit. But maybe Herol's he's going to work his way into this fight rather than just jump on Joseph.
And interestingly, being seconded tonight by Dean Powell, Bob Fitzsimmons look-alike, and Mick Williamson. I'm surprised that Glyn Rhodes is not in the corner.
Well, Glyn Rhodes was in his corner for the first fight, and the following day decided he didn't want to because he didn't agree with Herol's comeback. They're good friends, and he didn't think Herol was going to make it or achieve what Herol was setting out to achieve, and therefore his own principles decided I won't go in his corner, which is a fair decision.
So round two then of this 8-round contest coming up.
Second round two.
That's a nice left hand from Bomber. And of course Bomber lost a great deal the night he got beaten by Frank Grant. He lost that air of mysticism that always surrounded him.
Well, I think it was quite sad to see Herol lose to someone like Frank Grant. Grant was a good, strong, robust type of fighter, but never would have touched him in his prime.
Yes, and had the fight taken place 9 months earlier like it should have done, well, it might not have happened.
I think we're seeing it far too often these days. Good fighters coming back and ruining everything they've achieved. We saw Sugar Ray Leonard at the weekend lose to Hector Camacho, and there are far too many fighters fighting beyond their peak years.
But would you give Bomber Graham a chance of becoming British super middleweight champion?
I think even that's beyond him now. I think these fighters are a little bit too young. They know too much about Herol, and once Herol's been a fighter who's always relied on his reflexes, his speed and his cunning, and I think once that's been eroded, he always becomes vulnerable. One thing I've noticed about Herol in his last two, well, this fight and his last one, is that he appears to have very little power, and he's just touching his opponent as opposed to punching them. And although he's got about a 50% knockout record, he was a fair puncher in his time. We saw him knock over light heavyweights when he was a middleweight. And if they say the punch is the last thing to disappear, Herol's puncher's gone, so what does that say for the rest of it? It's a fairly solid left there from Herol. As they're treading on each other's toes very frequently.
Of course, there was the old times when Bomber used to travel around up north and stand on a handkerchief and dare you to hit him when he was standing with his hands behind his back and you couldn't touch him.
Well, that's right. I actually...
So, Sandy Risley, our whip, has just told me that we've got a cruiserweight fight to follow this. Anyway, just about a little story about Glyn Rhodes and his new wife, Hillary. She took me to task for mentioning a Japanese MC who did everything but say, let's get ready to lumble. And of course, she had a go at me for saying that. So, Hillary, I'm very sorry. And I know you're sitting at home watching, Hillary.
10 seconds. Second time, round 3.
So round 3 then, just let me remind you, Craig Joseph from Bradford in the black and white stripes against Herol, Bomber Graham from Sheffield. 30 minutes away from each other by car. How many lifetimes away from each other, Claude, in experience?
Huge. There's a huge difference, but that all goes out the window when you've been inactive like Herol's been. You've been knocked out a few times, you've been hurt. And this appears like an even money match.
Yes, and they're both treading on each other's toes deliberately now. I think that's a little test of one-upmanship. Both showing a very wide base, aren't they, with their feet?
Their styles are very similar, and it's a clash of styles, in fact. They're both counter-punchers.
Craig Doe's in good shape for this match.
Well, I think this is the closest Craig will get to a world championship.
Oops, steady, don't fall on me, boys. And referee O'Connell's in a bit of a mood tonight, isn't he? Just warning Joseph there for an infringement with the head.
I mean, there was some people are even whispering about Herol fighting for a British title already if he wins 1 or 2 more fights. But that's got to be premature talk. He's really got to beat a bona fide contender before we start slinging him in with decent young prospects.
And there is talk that he might get a shot at a WBU title.
Well, I don't put anything beyond the WBU. There's so many world titles around these days that you don't have to be that qualified to fight for them. I'm not just hitting at the WBU. There's the WBF, there's the IBO, the IBC. You can keep on talking.
Yes, and a couple more have been formed whilst we've been talking. Of course, we want to be careful because of the WBU PR man, John McDonald, RMC, is sitting beside us.
No, but in all fairness, what does it mean if there's so many world titles about and you can get a shot without earning your chance? Herol's got to go through the procedure like every other fighter.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that every other fighter hasn't had to go through the procedure because of the crazy situation.
Well, absolutely.
Anyway, back to the action. Bomber is treating this like a bit of a sparring session, Claude.
Well, I think they're finding both men are finding each other puzzling. Neither wants to make the first move. They're both trying to trick each other into making an error. And we're getting very little solid action.
Well, very typical Bomber Graham move there. Grabs you around the waist and throws you against the ropes.
Well, it's a typical Graham move, but doesn't win points.
So there then Mick Williamson in the corner, the cuts man, and I suppose having a cuts man for whenever Herol Bomber Graham fights, it's like having, I'm just trying to think of an analogy, Claude, that's as ridiculous as that.
Yeah, probably having a hairdresser for Kojak, isn't it?
Or your good old self, Claude. Or Dean Powell. Round 4 then of this 8-round chief supporting contest. Herol Graham in those plaid, well, they're not exactly plaid, they look more like swimming trunks, don't they?
Almost a variation of tartan, isn't it? It's
Sheffield tartan. I've just been informed it's called Graham tartan. Well, I'll believe that. I'll believe anything. And Craig Joseph, of course, wearing the more traditional trunks. Sings with a band called the Gillettes, I think.
Well, I'd expect Joseph to put Graham under a little bit more pressure at this stage of the fight. He's a younger man, and he's got everything to gain from this. And if he doesn't have a go, I think he'll be kicking himself tomorrow that he hasn't taken advantage of an opportunity.
Nice little right hook then from Bomber, just catching Joseph going past. Another very typical Herol Graham move, isn't it?
Well, suitable for wrestling, that
Well,
was.
he's done that before. And I'm saying that's one for you, but it's also one against you, Bomber. Don't do that again. And wasn't it Jose Says, the Belgian, he did that to three or four times?
And he was a lot bigger than Joseph.
Absolutely, he was about a cruiserweight at the time, wasn't he? He just knocked out Errol Christie and Bomber sorted him out and threw him over his shoulder a few times. Well, he's now talking to Craig Joseph out there.
Perhaps he feels he's got to win it on a fall and a submission.
You never know. Well, Craig now getting through there with a right. He looks slightly embarrassed by that, don't you think?
Well, he could have got a serious injury from that. He did land flat on his back. How would that be recorded in the record books?
Yes, interesting one. Well, the round's obviously Graham's. So there you are, there's Craig Joseph. And it's got Jack Doughty outside the ropes. Here, I think we're going to see that bizarre incident where Joseph went chasing. Bomber just ducked and down he went. Over you go. You're right, Claude, that could have been very dangerous, couldn't it?
Could have been, yeah.
But I think Bomber's actually got that off to a fine art. He throws you just high enough so you're going to spin, aren't you?
I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
10 seconds.
So,
round 5.
Round 5, we've had 4, they've all been Bombers. And I dare say that although they're not here this evening, whoops, you see well Joseph now trying to rough Bomber up. They normally used to follow Bomber around, of course, Johnny Nelson, Nassim Hamed, but I dare say they're at home watching this on Eurosport. Nice double jab then from Joseph. Once again, their feet getting tangled. And Bomber was the first of a breed, wasn't he, Claude?
He had a unique style, didn't he? And physically, he looks exactly the same as he did in his peak years.
Well, Graham warming up now, starting to pop out these punches fairly regularly. Oh, and Joseph there lands a left hook on the high chest.
It's probably more reminiscent of the sort of exhibitions that Herol used to do on the club circuit.
Which, of course, is not to denigrate Craig Joseph in any way. I mean, Bomber would give nightmares to most fighters in this country, wouldn't he?
Well, he would. We're not talking about... I think Joseph recognises he's not a British title challenger. He's giving away a huge amount of experience. But there's not much in this fight. I mean, you know, Herol's winning the rounds, but he's not dominating them. He's not hurting Joseph.
Well, almost another... I don't know what they call that in wrestling terms. Referee Larry O'Connor slapping Joseph around the head. Oh, another good round then for Bomber. Probably the best he's had so far. But a replay coming up now. I think this might be that left hook from Craig Joseph. Bang. Well, that's it, landed high on the chest.
Keep the pressure on.
10 seconds. Seconds out, round 6.
Round 6 then. And these left hands that Bomber's been landing, Claude, do you think they're having any significant effect?
I don't think so, particularly since most of them are landing while he's on the back foot. He's taking the sting out of them, but his jabs are merely just taps, but they're probably scoring because they're hitting the target. And Joseph hasn't been able to do anything near as much because Herol's so elusive. I think Herol had to really make a statement here tonight. He's been given an opportunity by one of the major promoters to box on one of their shows and show that he's at the caliber, or that he's still got the quality to fight for titles. And I don't really think he's moved in that direction yet.
That's a nice little left hand from Bomber Graham. But he's starting to plant his feet now and try and put some more power behind his punches. And it's, you know, I know he's only 37 years of age, but Bomber's the kind of guy I used to read about when I was a kid, you know. He's been around that long, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, same here. And he always used to have the extra gear to take a man out. He could play with good fighters like Mark Kaler, and he doesn't seem to be able to get into distance and show that same authority against Craig Joseph.
Well, that was a nice shot. Probably the best he's landed so far. Of course, Bomber's a difficult man to promote in as much as it's hard to get people to fight him for reasonable money.
Well, I think fighters will want to fight him precisely because they want to beat him and they think he's beatable. Whereas in his heyday, nobody wanted to touch him because he was so awkward, you could only look bad. Now he's competing against a level of opposition who can make a name for themselves.
And do you believe the rumours that Bomber's only fighting because he's got financial difficulties?
Well, that's usually the reason for anyone coming back, and Herol's already said that he wants to fight for titles, British titles, European titles, so the ambition's still there as well.
I don't know if the idea of wearing pink socks is too bright, do you?
Oh, maybe it's a Herol tactic to put the opponent off, I don't know.
Anyway, another good round then for Bomber Graham. That was the sixth. We've got two to go. So there they are, and Mick Williamson, they're just looking behind to see what's happening in the Joseph corner. He's got a nick now on the left cheek. There's Craig Joseph. He's just got a lump and a nick appeared on the left cheek there, as you can see.
Yeah, that just came up at the end of the round, and Herol did set his feet a bit more in that round and was punching more. He was punching harder than any other stage in the fight.
Take a second. Second round, round 7.
Penultimate round, then round 7. Well, I've got a feeling now, Claude, that whoops, easy. That was right above us there. Larry O'Connor saying, please don't get him around the waist and throw him all over the place. But it looks like Bomber's looking for a knockout.
Oh, I think if he's not looking for a knockout, he's certainly looking to hurt Joseph more with his punches. And I think they're actually more telling at this stage than previously. It's more accurate, and Joseph doesn't seem to fancy the job as much.
Well, he's showing off now, isn't he? Well, Claude, looking at Craig Joseph from this distance and this angle, I think it would be a moral victory if he were to get through this one.
Well, I think that's all he can hope for at this stage, although I don't think he's completely given up. He's trying to play the counter punch and hoping he gets lucky with one punch, but that's a lot to ask against someone as slippery as Herol.
That was a good shot by Bomber, then a lovely straight left right through the middle. And, well, it didn't seem to bother Joseph at all.
He's looking a little bit more like the old Herol, Graham, but the punching power seems to have deserted him.
Right look then from Bomber as the bell ended round 7.
Well, he's enjoying himself in there, isn't he?
Well, he's always been I've always liked Bomber anyway as a bloke, you know, he's always been all right with me, so to speak. I've always had a great deal of respect for his abilities, and I feel like you know, when he should have been a world champion, they all avoided him, didn't they?
Well, that's part of the reason why I'm disappointed in Herol, because I've got so much admiration for his skills. I don't particularly want to see him fighting at this level at this stage of his career.
Yes, and of course you sparred with him many years ago, didn't you?
Well, in all fairness, I couldn't lay a glove on him. But
yes, and you sparred with Naz as well not too long ago. Now, who hit you the hardest?
Well, the less said about that, the better, Steve.
Okay, let me tell you, folks, it was Naz. I've seen the pictures.
Second round, the last round.
Here we go then for the 8th and final round at the Elephant and Castle Leisure Centre. Well, it might seem terribly unfair to Craig Joseph, who just took a good right hook there, but we've not given a round to him yet. And as so often, this score doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually happened in the ring. But I think it's fair to say, Claude, that Bomber has won the rounds.
Well, he's won them all and he's done enough to win every round. And he's been competitive, but always one step behind. It's largely what we expected.
Yes, I'd agree with that entirely. And Bomber now looking like he fancies another couple of rounds to go on top of this.
Well, he's still got the stamina, hasn't he? He's worked reasonably hard and he's danced his way through 8 rounds. He's not really taken any solid shots, so we don't know what he's got left durability-wise.
Take him out. Right.
That's a nice little shot then from Bomber.
It's been his best punch, hasn't it? The straight left. Many moons ago, that used to knock people out. But
Certainly did, yes.
I think his last 2 or 3 rounds have been Herol's best. He's landed more solidly. Which is a good sign if you can perform at your best in the last 3 rounds.
Yes, I'll go along with that. But Claude, a quick critique about his future?
Well, I can't see it going much further, and the moment they step him into championship class, he's going to run into trouble, I think.
And the formality of the result let referee O'Connell raising Bomber's arm.
I think it will be quite emphatic.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it's anything more than 80-76, to be honest with you. It looks like 8 rounds to 0 for Bomber. Larry O'Connell may well have been a bit generous to Joseph and given him a share of 1 or 2 of those rounds. Which we don't mind, do we?
No, I don't think you would deny him that.
Right, let's get our MC, John McDonald.
Ladies and gentlemen, Larry O'Connell scorecard wins. For Joseph, 76 points. For Graham, 80 points. Your winner, Herol Bomber Reader. So I'd like to appreciate a great game move indeed. Craig Joseph.
So 8 rounds to 0 then. Bomber Graham wins 80-76. And still only one British fighter has beaten him. Good effort though by Craig Joseph, but not enough. Well, we're going to have a short break again very shortly, but we're going to be back for a very exciting